Keeping systems up to date is a key challenge for many administrators. Lenovo XClarity Administrator provides critical support for this task of managing system firmware. Let's take a closer look. So from our main dashboard, we're going to select Provisioning, and we're going to first go into the repository. So managing firmware has several layers to it. The first layer is understanding what firmware is available. And the great thing that XClarity Administrator provides is an ability to understand the current firmware that's available without having to go out to the website and manually search for things. So instead, I can simply come in here and I can say Refresh Catalog. And this is going to force a check and a download of information about any firmware that's currently available. So today we're going to focus on updating some new SR650s that we have. So I'm going to simply use the filter box to find updates for SR650. And I'll expand this out so we can just kind of see what is currently available. And let's just look at the XClarity controller firmware as an example. And here we can see that we've got, several generations. So one of the nice things here as well is not only does it show me what's currently available, but it also can show me a little bit of our history. So I can see here that I've had a few updates recently that are available. It tells me which ones are currently in use or not in use. It gives me an idea of the severity. And I can just click on this information icon, and I can get access to the README file, and I can see exactly what the criticality of this particular update might be. So that's great. That's kind of the first phase. It gives me an idea of all updates that are available. But the next question is going to be, well, which ones should I use? Maybe something just came out yesterday. Is that really what I want to use? And that's where these, what I call best recipes, come in, or what we really call compliance policies. So this is going to look at not just individual updates, it's going to look at updates as a group. And so let's say in this example that I'm about to do an update, and I want to go and I want to use the best recipe back from March. So you'll notice that there's a number of updates here on the top. They all say default, and you can see on this column here that these are predefined. So these are compliance policies that are downloaded directly from Lenovo based on our recommendations of updates at any point in time. Also notice that there are some user-defined ones down here at the bottom. So if I need to do something different, if I need to edit my current compliance policy and change it up, I have full control to do that. But in general, it's always going to be easier to take the predefined ones that I've downloaded. And so if I select into this, I can see a long list of systems here. And again, let's just focus in on our SR650s that we're going to work on today. And if I expand that out, right, this is going to tell me for this policy, it's going to say, okay, for this system, here are all the things that we recommend for each of these different elements. So XClarity controller, UEFI, provisioning manager, etc. And you can kind of see the list of things that are possible on my machines, including, of course, different adapter cards and stuff that I might have inside. So it's going to look at the full system firmware across whatever I have installed inside of this system. All right, so now let's actually apply something. So we've accessed the latest available. We have a best recipe one we want to use. Now let's go ahead and let's activate some firmware. Now I do have a choice here as well, and there are two tabs in this in the firmware update category. So I can update without policy. So if we look at that for a moment, we can see here, for example, I've got a system, and I can go through and look at all the different elements, and it tells me what's currently installed. And then it gives me an ability to choose what I might want. And I can select from the different levels of firmware that are available. Now, the challenge with doing it this way is it's a little extra work. I've got to go through and select on each of these individual pieces. And once again, we suggest it's a lot easier to use these standard policies where we kind of do that work for you. So here I'm going to use the filter box, and I'm just going to type in SR650s, find the two systems that we're interested in. We'll notice here that these are currently showing compliant, but they're being compared to a fairly old policy. So what we want to do is select these two devices, and we want to update now to a more current policy. So we'll select the one from the March timeframe. And when I say OK, it's not actually making any changes. It's simply making the health check. And so it comes back now and says, well, these guys really aren't compliant now that we're comparing it to a more recent policy. And I can expand this out, and I can see exactly line by line what recommendations it's making. If I needed to, for some reason, to go back and update just pieces of it, I can select individual firmware elements and just update those parts. But I think it's much more efficient here to simply select even both devices in this case, and then go ahead and drive the update forward. Now, When I get into this, I do have a couple more choices. I can select the update rule here. And I also have an activation choice. I can either do a delayed activation if I want to get this all set up, but then not do it right now in the system. The next time the system reboots, it'll connect into XClarity and do the update at that point in time. So you can control things that way. In this case, I want to choose immediate activation. And notice that there's also a schedule button down here for this. So if I knew I was going to have a maintenance window at 2 a.m. on Saturday or something like that, I could go ahead and schedule this to happen at a specific point in time. But in this case, these are new systems that we're deploying into this space. So I don't need to worry about that. I can do immediate activation. And so I'm just going to select perform update and let it go ahead and perform the update. Now, again, this is going to take a while, probably not that interesting to go ahead and watch that process at this point. But we've easily now gone in, identified what the updates are required, and now I'm going to get those systems up to date to the latest firmware. So with that, you can see XClarity Administrator really greatly simplifies the task of managing firmware, enabling administrators to stay on top of a critical aspect of the health of their infrastructure.